So we're going to talk about today, in today's event, we're going to talk about something that's important to the vast majority of the people in America, and that is Social Security. But I would say that most people don't have a clue all the different aspects of Social Security. They all expect they're going to get it, but they don't know, they don't understand the trigger points. I mean, there's 2,700 different options in Social Security. It is not easy. It's not simple, right?
Right. And we'll talk a little bit today of where Social Security came from,
Right.
like kind of where it started, how the plan was initially set up, and then how we got to where we are today. And what do you do? Like you said, how do you best maximize your benefit? One thing I want to jump in before we jump into Social Security. So our world, the entire planet, 7 billion people. That's the number.
Does that include countries outside of America?
Yes. Yeah. America, India, China, Europe, Africa, the whole thing. We've always been 7 billion. The world over 6 billion used to say, then 7 billion. Well, there's a few studies that anticipate that we're going to hit 8 billion people in our world.
That's a lot of people.
In November this year. So this month, they think that we'll pass 8 billion. It's a lot of people.
We're not going to be able to feed all those people, Jeremiah.
So that's right. So the very interesting part of this was there's a number of models. Some, people think, we're getting 8 billion, 9, 10, and we just keep on going. Well, the study and a few of them are saying that they don't even have us reaching 10 billion. And this is not because we run out of food or run out of energy. They're just saying we're having natural self-selected choices to have less kids.
Yeah. So the better the economy is proven that the better the economy, the number of children that are born within that particular area starts to drop.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's empowering women saying, I don't want to be just somebody that's going to be producing all these children.
Yeah, to have 5 or 6 children, it's very difficult to have a career with that. Yeah. And Germany, I think, in Europe was ahead of us in that they were having less than 2 kids per couple, 1 to 1.5 children. So it's not replacing the current couple. U.S. is heading that direction. A lot of African countries are heading that direction.
And China's a big one. China, of course, they had a one boy.
Yeah, policy. One child policy.
Now they're trying to speed up, and women and couples are saying, no, we don't want to do that. Yeah. So they're not taking the incentive, I guess.
Yeah. So it's interesting as you think about the whole world and how do we plan for this? How do we provide for this? And it was a great study of just saying, it wasn't their views were not that energy and food were the these huge issues that we're going to run out of things. Rather, we're seeing a peak. And one of the studies had that we would hit 8.7 billion by 2050, and that was the peak. Mm-hmm. Others had us going to 10 and a little bit, but one of them had an 8.7. So nothing big to dwell on, but just the fact that we are, as of this month, like
does this have to do with Social Security?
So I think it's related because how do you care for it? So instead of the whole world, let's narrow down to U.S. Just the United States. Back 1935, they came up with the idea of Social Security.
Who was the president in 1935?
It's quizzing me on FDR. I'm not sure.
FDR, right.
Basically saying, okay, we need a new deal. We need something different. So starting in 1935, 1940 was when they first started paying benefits. That's when it first started coming out. And back then, the full retirement age, we're going to talk a lot about that. The full retirement age was 65 years old. And that is the age at which, if you work to this point or whatever you stop, but at full retirement age at 65 years old, you can have the full benefit from Social Security.
That's really an important thing, that full retirement age. We talk about it, and we talk with our clients about it, because with that creates the moment that if you continue to work, you could continue to make as much money as you wanted to make, and your Social Security benefits would not be altered in any way, shape, or form. But if you work prior to that, your Social Security benefits would start to be altered. It's less than $19,000 a year if you make, and you lose your Social Security benefits. So that we call it FRA, but everybody
full retirement age,
full retirement age.
Yeah, and so as a lot of people know, and we'll talk through this, but so 65 is the full retirement age. That's the goal in essence.
Right.
You can take Social Security as early as 62. You can take it as late as 70. And what the government does is if you take it before your full retirement age, that it used to be 65, we'll update that in a minute, but before your full retirement age, they reduce your benefit. He was saying basically you're going to start earlier, you're going to live a little longer than we planned on this program, so we can give you less. On the flip side, if you get to your full retirement age and you delay 1 year, 2 years, a couple of years out, all the way up to 70, they'll increase your benefit, saying, we don't have as many years. So the interesting things I see is it started at full retirement age was 65. It's no longer that, as a spoiler, but the average age life expectancy in 1940 when this was coming out was 77 years old.
So they lived from 65 to 77. So
that was the actuarial expectation.
So you had about a 12-year or so.
Yep. And for a woman, it was 79 years.
Yeah.
So 77 and 79, that was the expectation. So now fast forward to 2019, instead of being 77 for men, it's 83 years. So that's 5 years longer.
And that's the big issue that Social Security is under trouble because
Yes.
of just aging. People are living longer. The other one is also the working number of the people that are contributing to Social Security has dropped significantly, hasn't it?
Yeah. So for numbers on that, 1960s, we'll just get partway through the program, 5.1 workers for every retiree. So you have 5 people in the workforce earning, paying into the system for 1 retiree. Well, by 2020, which is now roughly 2022, it's 2.7 workers for every 1 retiree.
So you got people living longer, and you got less people paying into the system, and they haven't changed the numbers dramatically, or at least to adjust to that payout, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, they haven't refocused it. So what they did a number of years ago is they adjusted the full retirement age. It used to be 65. It's been like that for a long time. They adjusted it to phase up to 67. And so there's a lot of folks right now who've probably thought about this themselves. When they're born in certain years, it's not just 65 or 67. It's 66 and 6 months,
right?
Or 60 months.
And you get a Social Security statement. Now, for those of you that don't get a Social Security statement, you may not be retired, but you can go to ssa.gov and open an account with Social Security, and it'll show you what your benefits are. And there's basically 3 parts. It's at age 62, your full retirement age, and then at age 70, it shows what your benefit would be based upon your current earning pattern, right?
Yep. That's right. And they track your earnings, which is, when I pulled my statement, I'm a bit younger, but seeing like, oh, yep, that's what I was making year over year, that they kind of track all that through what's reported, at least. People who work in jobs where not everything's reported, in essence, have a reduction because they're not reporting that full amount. But it's the reported income that goes through. And so the change now is from 65 to 67. People who retire, I think it's 2027 is when everybody will be 67. All that's phased out. And so it's a shift. So for a lot of folks, that's kind of the overlay. A lot of folks look at what's best for them. Well, that's where the complexity starts. First, if you're just taking your own benefit, okay, that's one. Well, are you married?
You're married.
Does your spouse have a benefit? What you can get from your spouse is 50% of their benefit.
Or you take your own.
Whichever's higher. And so if you had one spouse who worked, say, as a physician for a number of years, and one spouse who worked but did something different that made less, 50% of the spouses might be higher. So people can opt into that. But those choices, which one to opt into, some of them are irreversible.
And when you take it, again, going back to that full retirement age, the lower earning spouse wants to get the benefit. Let's say that I make $45,000 a year and my spouse is making $145,000 a year. Obviously, my spouse is going to have a higher Social Security benefit than I am. But if I start my benefit early, I would lock in some that I can't make adjustments to, right?
Right. You lock in for yourself and for your spouse. You would reduce that amount. And so some of those get locked in. The interesting part is then there's not just a spousal benefit, there's a survivor benefit. So if the spouse were to pass away, well, it kind of changes things. You can now take on a different benefit.
You've got all these, again, going back to my comments earlier, there's 2,700 different options with Social Security. We're just trying to go through the basics now so people understand. Most people look at it husband, wife. In traditional households, the husband makes more money than the wife. But now we're moving into a time where that may not be the traditional outcome, I guess is what I'm saying.
And we often hear people saying, well, should we delay taking Social Security?
Right.
And the answer always is depends. Like we have to build a plan to determine where the benefits are. Often having one spouse, if the cash flow is strong enough, having one spouse delay until they're 70 is a benefit to the family unit, that they will maximize their
but if I delay my benefits to age 70, that means Social Security hasn't paid me for those years beyond my full retirement years, my full retirement age. What happens if I die?
Yeah, if you die, you miss it. I mean, the reason that it's often useful is because your spouse, one of you likely is to live longer, so your spouse would be entitled to a higher benefit. But I mean, the break even is often 83, 82, depending. We always do the math on that, but if someone, we had a client not that long ago that had a lower life expectancy because of other reasons.
Right.
And so for them to do some of those delays didn't make any sense just because they didn't expect to live that long.
Yeah. I mean, the expectation is that you're going to live longer than you realize. And we always tell clients that you want to delay your Social Security as long as you possibly can, because it does increase. And it's amazing to me how many people take their Social Security early. And maybe it's because of health reasons, their job, they dislike it. They just say, well, I'm just going to pull my Social Security.
Yeah.
But they artificially control their income. Then they actually earn less because they want to keep their Social Security benefits. And I'm thinking, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
If you're able to work, you want to continue. I guess if you just hate your job or your job is really hard on your body, there's a lot of reasons why people quit or start early on Social Security. But generally, they're really handicapping their income going forward.
When put some numbers on that, if someone were to take Social Security at 62, so the earliest they can, they're only going to get 70% of what they could have gotten.
Right.
As compared to, they can only not only get 100% at full retirement age, they actually increase it past 100% with waiting until 70. So it's a significant reduction to take it early. But here's the interesting thing that I find so interesting. Social Security was not made for the person who's making $150,000 a year.
Right.
That wasn't the original intention, but they're part of the system. They're part of the program. They receive a benefit. One of the discussions people have, and we'll talk more in this next section, of how do you change Social Security? How do you up it? One of them was you might change the full retirement age to 70. Well, in that analysis, if someone needed the money, they're desperate, they can't work any longer, 62, they have to start taking Social Security, they would only be receiving 57% of what their benefit could be.
At the full retirement age.
At the full retirement age. So that's a massive reduction for the people that might be in the most desperate, perhaps, situation. So I think that's an interesting part of our Social Security system.
And this is where the social issue comes into play, because Social Security was designed for people that were indigent. They didn't want to leave anybody desperate.
Yeah, a safety net for society.
It was a safety net for society, but they had to calculate it based upon something. And obviously the contribution from your wages, and that has stair-stepped up. So they've maxed out, how much you pay into Social Security based upon how much you earn. So everybody in the lower income brackets or lower earning aspects are going to pay the full amount every single year that they pay into Social Security, and the employer is going to contribute also the other half of that.
Right.
But once you reach above a certain dollar amount, is it 145 now?
Yeah, right now it's 147.
147, your Social Security drops off. Now the people that need the benefit, okay, I'm going to be a little bit socialistic here. The people that need the benefit are the people who are at the lower end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But they're still going to get less of the bang, so to speak, for the dollars they contributed, because they're maybe making $50,000, $60,000 a year versus the person that was making $145,000 a year or more. And they're saying, well, I don't need it. I've got money I put aside for retirement plans.
Right.
But you have this social inequity, so to speak.
Yep. And you have a lot of the country who make good money,
right,
and would say, well, why would I pay into a system? It's just a reallocation. If I'm paying into the system, well, then I want to receive it out when I retire. Like I want to receive my Social Security, and it's important. They wouldn't forego those benefits for the sake of, it's better for the system. And that's where I think we find ourselves in a hard spot. There's a number of folks who Social Security is their primary planning. That's not advisable.
And that's a tough spot.
Yes.
If you're marching towards retirement and you haven't saved, you haven't set aside, Social Security was never intended to be more than 40% of your retirement income.
Yeah. And never intended to be, in essence, a good retirement. It's a safety net. It's to keep people off the streets. It's to keep them in subsistence, with the idea that there would be more.
So the planning aspects, you should start planning as soon as you get married and as soon as you start out, but oftentimes people don't. They plan at the latter stages of their working life, and they find that, wow, I'm really short of what I need, or they just kind of bury their head in the sand. And Social Security is part of the benefits, but I've also, we look at all these income factors, so to speak, that clients will have. And Social Security, a lot of clients are very surprised if they just delay their Social Security until age 70. If they like the job, they continue to work, how much more in benefit they're going to receive on a monthly basis than if they start at the full retirement age or a younger age.
Yeah, and that makes their retirement that much easier,
right?
And or the other savings they can have for their generations.
Right.
And that's a hard part of this, right? Because it goes from a safety net for everyone to now being a strategic moment for those who can afford to wait. It's a hard system, I think, to go through. So we'll take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about some of the specifics of Social Security that are unique and some of the changes that might be on the horizon. So come on back.